If you are into knife combatives, I'm sure you have heard of the Medusa edged weapon system, as well as the Piper system and the Libre knife fighting guild. These three systems of knife combatives have been getting a lot of attention on social media in the last few years. Now, I am a Medusa edged weapons instructor, so most of what I'm going to say here comes from a Medusa perspective. However, you should also know that I've been practicing Filipino, Indonesian, and Thai martial arts for about 30 years now. And this is the basis of all my martial arts. So when it comes to combatives, the skills that I apply the knife with mainly comes from eskrima. Now, this is where my knowledge of timing, range, coordination with the blade, and movement with a training partner and an opponent comes from. Filipino martial arts has totally taken over my martial arts journey, and this is the basis of my combatives as well, because Filipino martial arts at their core are combative systems. Many would argue that Filipino martial arts, eskrima, arnis, kali, whatever label you get it, are a little overcomplicated to fit in the combatives realm. But when you get down to it, Filipino martial arts is very connected to combatives. And the nature of the arts from the Philippines are very adaptable, so you can make them what you want them to be. That is the beauty of these arts. But let's talk about knife combative systems. Specifically, the knife combative systems that many would call a knife cult. Many use that term to describe Libre, Piper, and Medusa, because these arts are based on how criminals use the knife in brutal assaults and often murders. This should sound horrible to most people, because who wants to learn that? And I can understand that idea. These arts are made for the absolute worst case self-defense scenario. Also though, if you learn these arts, you can understand very deeply how vulnerable you are to a knife assault if you have no weapons on you. You can understand how you need to be aware of what people are doing, where their hands are, and how they are approaching you. This basis in these knife cults will help make your self-defense, your empty hand self-defense, better. When it comes to understanding these different knife combative systems, it is important to see what is universal, what is the same in them. The first thing that comes to mind when I consider this is that they are all tactics-driven systems. They are not systems that teach you this move and that move, although there is a framework to build off of in each system. The framework in each system are quite minimalist, although when you compare them, Medusa is definitely the most minimalist system out of the three. Another similarity these three systems share is that they are not dueling systems. They are systems of putting a knife into use against another person. The things that set them apart are how they get there. Medusa, for instance, uses the formula of shock, latch, and stab. And this is why I love the system. This is why I became a Medusa instructor. I am an absolute advocate for preemptive striking. Yes, by that I mean hitting first. And that's what the shock aspect is in the Medusa system. The other thing I totally love about the Medusa system is that you start with empty hands, you train to shock and latch, and then draw your weapon and stab. What this does is create an ideal of using empty hands first. If your empty hand skills are successful, you may not have to go to the weapon. You may have other options. This gives you time to consider your use of force and consider what use of force is reasonable to the situation. Also, keep in mind that violence can be brought on you all of a sudden, and you have to make the way to your weapon. The thing I love about the Medusa system is it's not teaching a quick draw or anything flashy like that. It's giving you a tactic to give yourself the time to get to your weapon. However, the shock can be used for other things like escaping, getting to safety. It does not mean you always have to get a weapon into play, and this is what makes the Medusa system so adaptable. On the other side of things, the Libre system and the Piper system take into consideration the fact that if you see trouble coming, if you know that violence is about to take place and it is deadly violence, potentially deadly violence, then you should have your weapon in hand if at all possible. I have seen some good examples of accessing the weapon in the Libre system, and I am just barely scratching the surface on Piper, so I'm not an expert in either one of these systems when I talk about them. But Libre has some weapons access stuff that I've seen over the years, and I do love the way they use the Emerson wave to get the knife into reverse grip on the draw. The focus on eye attacks in the Libre system is something I really like. The blinding, full blinding, half blinding, and the tactics involved in that I think are really cool. This is very finite striking though, and has a high potential to fail to actually blind. However, a slash at the eyes will elicit a reaction, and the Libre practitioners train to take advantage of that reaction. I see these as very viable tactics. Libre also has some brilliant marketing and packaging that goes with it. It is quite a fun system to be a part of, and there are some great tactics in the system. Even though it is not a knife dueling system, they do spar, and it's interesting some of the ways they spar. This is an important aspect to actually functionalizing knife skills, and Scott Babb has created some great sparring drills. Piper, on the other hand, has some really interesting training when it comes to deception and knife fighting. Piper literally has some sleight of hand drills involved in their knife training. This is an aspect of knife combatives that was often overlooked by many who practiced knife combatives before the Piper system became popular. However, people like James Keating have been talking about the connection of sleight of hand and knife fighting for years before Piper appeared on the scene. From what I have seen, Piper can create very deceptive movement and is a very good system for putting the knife into somebody before they even know it's in your hand. Quite honestly, all of these systems have something to offer. However, if somebody was to come up to me and say, listen, my kid has to go into harm's way in 3 days, he has to leave, he has to deploy, what system would I teach? What system would I choose to give them? And I will be completely honest, it would be the Medusa system. The Medusa system is so bare bones, it has such good tactics, such honest and effective tactics, that is what I would teach. However, with the Medusa system as a base, adding good tactics from other systems can only strengthen that base.